Hello everyone and welcome to another episode of my wedding planning series. Today I thought I'd do something a little bit different and bring you behind the scenes to show you how I am able to create floor plans for all of our brides and give you some tips and tricks for how to achieve the perfect seating chart for your own wedding.
The first thing you want to do is you want to contact your wedding planner or the hotel where you're having your wedding, and you want to ask for a blueprint. Now, usually the blueprint won't look like this if it's coming from the hotel. Usually the blueprint will be more of an architectural drawing or rendering of the space. So it's just giving you the dimensions of the space. You need the dimensions because you need to have a good indication or fair idea of how much space you actually have to work with. But if you're asking for a blueprint for your wedding planner, then it usually will look like this, where they're guiding you on where to place your tables and how the general layout of the event should look like. Once you've received that, you then want to decide on how many people you want at each table and what kind of tables you want, even whether you want rectangular tables, round tables, square tables, whatever you want at that event. Now, there are three different seating arrangements that you can have for your wedding. The first one is the open seating or the assigned seating, where your guests will walk in and pick whatever seat or table they want. This is my least preferred method, I have to say, because it often leaves your guests confused as they have no direction on where to go, and you will have people moving around tables. So somebody walks in, sit on this table, and then they realize that all of their friends are on this table. So they mess up the table setting for where they sat initially and leave it and then move to this table. And then perhaps they move to this table and then realize, oh, actually, I want to be closer to where the food is, right? And so they move from this table and then they move to this table, and you don't want that. Now, the second option is to have assigned seating. Now, assigned seating is where you specifically indicate in which seat belongs to who. So as an example, if somebody walked into your reception area, okay, and let's say that they are on this table, you specifically let them know that they're seated on this chair, right? Or on this chair, or on this chair, whichever one that you select. This is usually a good idea when you're planning out a silver service. So when it's a plated service, then it's a good idea to have assigned seating. That way, if anybody has any special dietary requirements or they have previously selected what food they want off of the menu, then it's pretty easy for the waiters to know where to place what. The third option is to assign tables. Assigning tables means that, as an example, you assign someone to this table right here. If you assign someone to this table, you're not telling them exactly where they're seated. So they arrive at this table and they choose to sit here or here or here, whichever seat at this table that they want, right? Okay, so now that we have that out of the way, let's move on to the floor plan itself and how to plan out your floor plan. Now, usually what I will recommend is that when you're planning out your seating, you allow adequate spacing in between tables and away from any objects that might be in the way. So as an example, you have this dance floor right here, and that means that you don't want to place a table too close to the dance floor such that the people seated at that table become uncomfortable when people start to move, on the dance floor too vigorously, So usually when I'm planning out the space, what I will start with is the bigger items. And by the bigger items, I mean any carpentry work or such. So I usually will start with the stage. right? Now, typically, when we plan weddings here in Ghana, there are two options for the stage here. You can have a sweetheart table or you can have a high table. I have to say that we haven't done a high table in a very, very long time. I think that it's become a little outdated, but if you wanted to have a high table, then you can start with that. The sweetheart table is assuming that yourself and your partner are going to sit right here at this table facing everyone else. And the reason why I like to put our couples on a stage is just because when the room is this big, you want your seating to be slightly higher than everyone else so that the last person even at the back of the room can still see you. Because let's face it, you are the center of attraction for that day. So this is the stage that I will put the couple. And when it comes to the overall layout, I usually will also recommend that you think about filling in spaces. So if you have a very big stage like this, then you also want to include maybe some floral arrangements. So these pedestals that you see next to the couple are for floral arrangements. What you see here is the cake table. The reason I like to place the cake table close to the couple is because they usually, I'm talking about you as if you're not even in the room, right? Now, you usually will come in, do a little bit of a tour here, sit down, and then cut the cake. Once you cut the cake, then we move the cake table away so that the dance floor is clear. Now, when you are planning your space and deciding who sits where, my recommendation is these tables that we have here closest to the floor, the dance floor, is where you want to have all of the people who are the closest to you. So your immediate family, usually these two tables here at the very top of the room, I will reserve for the bridal party. So if you have a big bridal party, say 5, 6, 8 on each side, usually I will reserve these two tables for the bridal team because I am assuming that you want your bridal team very close to you. Now, once you have done that, the next two tables here, this one here and this one here, I will recommend you save for your nuclear family. Okay, so your siblings, your parents, and then moving on, you could, include your aunties, your extended family. Generally, I will say that all of these tables, right, seat people who are the closest to you, the people who you've known the longest, the people who you want around you, or the closest around you on your wedding day. Once you've assigned those tables, then the next tables will, so this is the format which I recommend, right? Once you've done these, the closest people to you, then you can go on to assign the rest of your guests. And the assumption usually will be that these two tables farthest away from you are the people who you don't know as well, or the people who are not the closest to you. So that's how I will recommend that you plan out your tables. The tables here on the sides are your buffet tables. So this seating plan is assuming that it's a buffet. And the reason why it's split in two is that you really do not want to have a single service area for this number of guests. If you've got a guest number this big, in this scenario, we've got 222 guests. Then you want to split the room into two so that half of the room have one service area and then the other half of the room have another service area. And these tables you see on the sides here next to the walls are your multi-purpose tables. And multi-purpose tables are usually reserved for event production stuff, right? So you have your DJ, your lighting technicians, your photographers, videographers might need 5 minutes to sit down because, let's face it, they've been on their feet all day for 8 hours. So at some point, you do want to get them somewhere to sit or even to grab a meal quickly and join the party again. Now, when it comes to how to indicate who sits where, my recommendation is to do this. So let's go in and number these tables. All right, let's give the tables table numbers. So when you're numbering your tables, so as to make it easy for people to find where to seat who, this is what I usually do for our own events. I usually will have all of the odd numbers on one side of the room and all of the even numbers on the other side of the room. So let's go ahead and number these tables, shall we? So we're going to start off with yourselves, of course, because table 1. So we have table 2 right here, and then instead of using table as the next one, I would move across the room and number this one. So table 2, table 3, table 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, right, and so on. So we're numbering all of these tables. Okay, so that's 23 tables including yours, and I am just going to go ahead and number the multi-purpose tables also. Not that it really matters for the multi-purpose tables, but just so that if we do need to tell our event production staff what table is assigned to them, that it's easy to do that. Okay, so now we have all of the tables numbered, right? I haven't included exits or entrances into this because I want the floor plan to be easy to understand. But usually your Manya Hall has has 2 entry points. So there's an entry point right here to the left, and there's another entry point right here to the right. And then there are other exit points along the hall where the staff can come in and out of. So all of your guests will come in through the 2 entry or exit points at the front here. Right? So as they walk in, it's pretty easy. When you have assistants stationed at the door, they can immediately tell where the tables are because they know that all of the odd numbers are on this side and all of the even numbers are on this side. Now, the most efficient way to guide your guests as to what tables they should be heading towards is to include an insert inside of the invitation. So my recommendation is include an insert which indicates what table they are seated at. So as an example, let's say that table 10 is named after a flower. Okay, so let's say table 10 is orchids. So on the insert card inside of the invitation, you will indicate you are seated at table 10 orchids, right? Or you are seated at table 11 carnations. And that makes it really, really easy. The second option is to place a seating chart at the venue. So if you're placing a seating chart at the venue, I haven't included that inside of this floor plan, but just outside of the hall here at Omanya Hall, Labani Beach Hotel, is a really beautiful lobby that you can use for your cocktail hour. So you want to place your seating chart inside of the cocktail hour where it's really visible, where guests can actually see their names and see what table numbers or names they're seated at. In both scenarios, what I will also recommend is to have a team of event assistants or ushers like I indicated earlier. Okay, now if you have a team of event assistants or ushers who are guiding your guests, one important thing I want to point out is you want to print out a list of names, okay, for your event assistants or your ushers. Now, when you are putting together your guest list, what you want to do is to place names in alphabetical order, their names first. Seriously, guys, please do this. Because as a wedding planner, I know from experience that nothing is more heartbreaking than being given a list of 100, 200 guest names that are in no particular order. And then people get to the entrance and have to wait for hours on end to find their names. It's really heartbreaking. And sometimes we get the guest list so late that we really can't go back and edit it. Try and send your guest list to us minimum 1 week before the wedding, so that if there are any changes that we need to do on the guest list to help you and make it more seamless for people to be able to find their tables, that we're able to do so. This is what your room will look like. Like I mentioned before, I haven't sort of indicated any exit points or entry points, so you won't see that inside of the floor plan. And the other thing I want to mention also is, please know that you won't have it all perfectly laid out. So as an example, if you have groups, so let's say that you have all of your work colleagues here on table 16. If your work colleagues there are only 8 of them, it's perfectly fine to include another 2 guests. Don't know your work colleagues at all. But then in saying that, so you want to group people such that people have some kind of a common ground and are seated together in such a way that they have something in common. Okay, so as an example, you want to place all of your schoolmates together from high school on perhaps one table, and then place all of your schoolmates from, let's say, university on another table, so that even if they don't know each other, they have some common ground and they have something to talk about.